Welcome into Up in the Rafters, a podcast brought to you this basketball season by our friends over at Johnny TShirt. Co-hosting this, I'm Taylor Vippolis, and this year I'm joined by national champion, the most outstanding player of the Final Four, and a Carolina basketball legend, the ACC Network's Joel Berry. Joel, every time we get this podcast moved because of one of these early week games, we're coming off a big win. We're ready to talk. Inside Carolina's like, hey, we need you guys to go back a couple of days. And then they lose this game. We can't talk about the high of the Duke game. Instead, we're talking about this loss to Clemson. What was your overall takeaways watching the UNC Clemson game?
Yeah, man, we should have kept this on Monday, man. Hope maybe that would have been a little bit different. Because now I was so ready to talk about the Duke game, and bam, now we got to talk about this Clemson game. But let's go ahead and get into it. I just think with the amount of energy that's exerted, or that was exerted in that Duke game, there's um some heavy legs, like that emotional, coming down from that high uh can be hard sometimes, and just getting back into the groove, trying to realize like, hey, that's just another game. Obviously that game meant a lot because of the rivalry, but we're still in the midst of the season, and every single game matters. And you know it was like it was two trap games. You got one game against Georgia Tech leading up until the weekend, which Carolina should have won that game, and then on the back end, you got Clemson, who they're scraping for, to keep their NCAA hopes alive, and you're coming off of this big game. So that's an excuse I'm gonna use. You got to be up, and you got to be ready to show up each and every game. And I thought it was a well fought game, but I just thought that Carolina clawed their way, or they dug themselves a hole. They tried to claw their way out. They got it back to a tie game. And then obviously when you exert that much energy, it's hard to get over that hump and take the lead. They had plenty of opportunities, which, from the optimistic point view of it, but it's just one of those games, man, where they had to show up and be ready to play, and against a team that has a little bit more sense of urgency.
Yeah, from the national media, it feels like the talking points are that the ACC isn't as strong as it's been in years past. This might be like a four team bid for the NCAA tournament, but we've seen year after year, no matter how weak they say the ACC is, the ACC teams you put in the tournament, those are the teams advancing to the Elite Eight, to the Final Four, to the national championships. So it's a conference that probably doesn't get the credit it deserves. And there's a lot of good teams on a night in, night out basis. And Clemson is one of those teams. They were previous a top 25 team. Now you mentioned it, they're fighting for their NCAA tournament life. Carolina comes into this game kind of flat. Clemson starts off on a 15-2 run with that sense of urgency. How much do you think that's something that we'll see from this North Carolina team going forward in this season, where they're playing these teams like Clemson, they're playing these teams like Miami, who are maybe 500 in conference play, and these teams are coming in thinking like, hey, for us to make the tournament, we're going to start needing these statement wins. And in the ACC, it doesn't really get better than a win against North Carolina right now.
Yeah, and the whole ACC talk is just crazy. The one thing I just don't like is that you have all of these analytics and these statistics, and we are allowing that to be the driver of how we evaluate teams in the ACC, and that it shouldn't be that way. Like, a Wake Forest team is better than what their net was saying, or what their statistics were saying. They're a better team. And the way that Carolina has to approach each and every game is the ACC from top to bottom is really good. And on any given night, we've seen that you can go down. And that's how it has been all season long. Obviously, they started out the conference play 9-0, but those were hard fought games. Those games weren't easy, and that's just the depth of this league. But it's human nature. We still have to look at these guys and realize that they're still human. They have to go out and play the games, and sometimes you get mentally and physically exhausted. I just think that this is another learning lesson before you get to the tournament, that on a weekend, like whether it be your Thursday, I believe it's Thursday, Friday game, or no, Wednesday, Friday, or Thursday, Saturday game, however it's laid out. You have to realize, like, after that game, you got to finish out the weekend. So I think that, in a nutshell, this is something that they can learn from, because you have to be prepared to be ready to move on to the next game and be able to dissect the scouting report, and be able to make that transition and get yourselves mentally ready for that next game. This is what it was like. Saturday, you got a big, physical, hard fought battle, very intense. Now you get a couple of days off, and now you got to go back at it again against a high quality team in the ACC. So I just think, from a positive standpoint, this is a time for them to learn from what they've done, and take that mindset of, we have to bring it every single game.
I saw this ACC stat that I want to share with you. This is from Danny Neckel on Twitter. In the past 10 years, the ACC has never finished as the best conference on Ken Palm or Bart Torvik. Yet during that time frame, the ACC has the most NCAA tournament wins, the most Final Fours, and the most NCAA titles.
I mean, it's crazy, man. Like the history speaks for itself, and I know the net doesn't. They don't take into account the history, but the history should be taken into account, because no matter what, the ACC has produced. Like,
Yeah.
I just think it's one of those things. We're giving voices to people who shouldn't have a voice. We're giving voices to people who just sit behind the computer, and they look at analytics and they look at the statistics, and they're not watching what goes into basketball. Like, there's more to it than just numbers. But the thing is, our numbers for the ACC speaks for itself. I mean, it is what it is. And the problem is, when you have truth, you got to try to suppress.
Yeah.
You got to try to do everything that you can and talk about it in a bad way to kind of move it out of the room. And that's the problem, is these people, they have to put up all of these just crazy stories just to make the ACC look bad. And what happens?
You,
Every
you
year they show up.
Yeah, I was gonna say right now Purdue is one of the best teams in the country, but come tournament time, if you're asking me who do I have more confidence in, a Purdue team or a Miami team that gets dragged into the tournament by the skin of their teeth, I'll take Coach L every time.
Exactly. Look what everybody was doing with Virginia and Tony Bennett. They were writing him off, and look where he's in. They're in second place. It's like, my thing is, what are people looking at? Like, that's why we have to get back to the basics of watching basketball. Yes, use the net as a tool. Use it to show, like, what is the team doing. But there should be, halfway through the year, or even before the halfway point of conference play, there should be, like, almost like a reset to reevaluate teams, so that November and December aren't the temperature gauge of what a team is like, because teams get better, especially in this environment with transfer portal. So yeah, I digress, but it's just crazy that people have to just continue to make up these crazy stories, and the history speaks for itself.
Yeah, not only is Carolina playing teams that are desperate and fighting for their postseason tournament lives, they're also North Carolina, and that in it of itself comes with a huge target on your back. When you're this North Carolina team and you have the emotional win against Duke, how do you kind of put into context what it's like playing, knowing that no matter what game you guys go into, you're going to get the other team's best shot because of the name on the front of your jersey.
And that's how it is every single game, to your point. And you have to be able to understand that there's no going into each and every game thinking that, oh, this is a cupcake game, or they're going to lay down because we're North Carolina, or they're going to lay down because they're coming into Chapel Hill, or if you want to go a step further, they're going to lay down because Clemson is 1-60 against Carolina in Chapel Hill. No, they're coming in, they're showing up ready to play. It doesn't matter who it is. And then when you go on the road, you best to believe that the road teams fans are coming out and they want to see a W. So I just, you got to be ready to play every single game. This game, they came out slow. They put themselves in a hole. Clemson came out. They started knocking down some threes, and then what happened? They got the confidence, and they're a really good team. They just struggled up to this point, but they're a really good team, and they came in with a sense of urgency. And that's what happens. You have to realize that people are coming in each and every game with their best, trying to knock you off, no matter if you're 0-20 or if you're 20-1. They're trying to come in, and they see these games as a mini national championship.
It was announced before the game that Seth Trimble was ruled out with a upper body injury. How much do you think not having Seth affected this team to where they do lose?
Yeah, you don't want to use that as an excuse because the ball game still has to be played and the next man is up. But I just think the guys have gotten into such a great groove with, in the coaching staff being able to know what lineups they're putting out there, and then all of a sudden you throw a wrench in your game plan, and now you have to kind of rearrange some things. So I think it was a loss from a standpoint of, you think about a guy like Joe Girard. In the first game, he only had like 5 or 6 points against Carolina. You put a guy like Seth Trimble on him, and just give him a different look. Maybe he doesn't have some of the points that he had. And that's just, I know RJ Davis did a great job on Joe Girard in the first game at Clemson. But having Seth Trimble being able to be that defensive minded person, just being able to throw an athletic guy on him and being able to disrupt what he is doing. So obviously the game still has to be played, and the next man has to step up, but not having Seth Trimble in a way did hurt them from a defensive standpoint. And then offensively, he gave them a different look, a guy that can slash to the basket and be athletic. But defensively is what I go to with Seth Trimble being able to just be a disruptor.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing not having Seth out there as one of your best perimeter defenders and one of your best defenders is that
Yeah.
this North Carolina team is a team that has to win games with their defense. And,
Mhm.
and not having him and not having the defensive intensity he brings and the ability to score those points off turnovers where Clemson outscores Carolina off points off turnovers was something that was going to hurt this team no matter what the final score was. And when I say that Carolina is a team that has to win with their defense, one of the biggest reasons why I say that is because you watch this team at times, and for as good as the pieces are individually offensively, they do go through stretches of games where their offensive efficiency really takes a plummet. You look at
Mhm.
how that game finishes when Carolina gets it to, I think, 70-70. They don't score a field goal until RJ Davis throws up a three in when the game doesn't even matter. Where do you think this team's offensive struggles come from, and why they go through some stretches where it looks like it's so hard for them to find consistent offense?
Yeah, it's difficult because RJ Davis has been playing amazing, and when you have a guy like that where he's playing at the caliber that he's playing at, you want to be able to get him the ball. Um, and he had 22 shots last night and only made 7, and 5 of them were three-pointers. And so you think about some of those shots being spread other places, but at the end of the day, you want him taking majority of the shots because of his shot making ability. And so that's just one of those those hard. and challenging things as a coaching staff. Just you want him to be able to take those shots, but you also want other people to be involved as well. And I just think that's part of it, but it's hard to put that on RJ because he has been playing amazing. But I think it's also the shooting struggles of some other guys. Like I think Cormac Ryan has to he's the difference maker. It's hard when you have a starter who is out on the court for a majority of the minutes and they only make one field goal and they've taken 10. And so I just think, everyone's waiting for him to make that turn to be able to knock down some shots. Cause I thought he had some great opportunities last night to be able to knock down some big time shots to help the runs to keep going, to keep the momentum on their side. But those shots you missed, then Clemson, they were on fire and they were going down capitalizing. So I think they have to be able to get some production from Cormac Ryan, get him to shooting the ball well so that they can continue to space out the floor. Then that opens up everything else. But if you only have RJ Davis hitting from the outside, that makes it tough to where now where defense is focused on him and they let other people score the ball.
Yeah, with Cormac Ryan, he goes. You mentioned it, 1 of 10 from the field, 0 of 6 from three, and it feels like this has been something for the majority of the season where the Carolina fan is like, we're winning games, and Cormac Ryan's not even shooting the ball well. Like, what? Wait till he turns it around and see where this team can kind of go. But we're slowly running out of days for the
We're
rest of the
running out of
season.
time.
What have you seen, I guess, to have confidence that he is going to be able to turn it around? Because you look at his shooting splits, he's shooting under 29% now from three, and it feels like he should be a lot better than that. But right now, it's hard to dispute the numbers and just the overall confidence level that the Carolina fan has when the ball leaves his hands.
Yeah, it's like at the beginning of the season, he comes in with the rep that he can shoot the ball. Um, then as the season progressed and those percentages started going down and down, I think his best game by far has was the Kentucky game when he was knocking down those threes. Um, but as the percentages just have gone down and down, now the the attention on from opposing teams start going to other guys that they don't want to score, and it's like, okay, maybe we're getting to a point where we can sag off a little bit and make him shoot, but maybe and give more attention to Armando or RJ, or even Harrison. Um, but it just makes it tough when you have Elliott and Cormac on the floor at the same time. The floor is shrunk is just shrinking, and now those driving lanes aren't there. So we're we're running out of time. And at this point, you gotta trust in your mechanics. I think right now, like last night, he caught the ball one time and could have just went right up into a shot, and he kind of hesitated a little bit, like he wanted to pass it back out, and they kind of like short closed out on him, and then he ended up shooting it. But at that point, you're better off just driving to the basket because now you're more focused on about missing the shot rather than making the shot and trusting your mechanics. And what gives me optimism is that the shots aren't forced. I think he's shooting the right shots within the offense. It'll be a difference if he was, not shooting well, but taking really tough contested shots. But a lot of the shots he had last night, I mean, maybe a little small closeout, but a little short vip closeout. But I mean, it wasn't anything like, Giannis or anything closing out on you. And I thought those shots were pretty wide open that he could have knocked down. I didn't mean to call you out like that, but it just fit the time.
Yeah, I mean, 5'9" closing out on you is not that intimidating. Quick break so I could remind everybody about our friends over at Johnny T-Shirt. If you're going to be in Chapel Hill, you can visit Johnny T-Shirt on Franklin Street. If not, you could go on johnnytshirt.com online. They are always running great sales. They have all the Carolina basketball apparel that the Carolina fan could possibly want. They've got the hats, the t-shirts, the jerseys, you name it. They've got it. It's great people, great customer service. And don't forget, Inside Carolina premium subscribers save 10% off their orders. Joel, I thought one of the most worrying things about the Clemson loss, outside of the lack of urgency that Carolina comes out with, and not being able to match Clemson. I thought one of the best parts about the Duke game was that Carolina took the fight to Duke.
Yeah.
But the Clemson game, it was reversed. And then in the post game, it comes out where Armando Bacot is talking about the team, and he said they had a bad practice Monday. They halted it halfway through. There was a bad shoot around Tuesday morning, and then some people showed up late for warm-ups Tuesday night. And he went on to say, we're a great team, but we're not talented enough to turn it on and off whenever we want to. And that feels like something that we heard last year, and not having that urgency outside of just the basketball X's and O's, like where this team can struggle. How worrying is it to hear some of the things like that, like people showing up late for before a big game?
Yeah, like there are a lot of things that you can bypass when it comes down to, just, being young kids. The coaches understand that these guys are in college, they're still trying to learn how to be professional. But that's unacceptable. Just simply put, it's that crap is unacceptable to be at a university like this, and um you're late to shoot around because guys are sleeping. um that's just an excuse. That shouldn't be the case. And as far as being leaders, that needs to be resolved. That should have been resolved like right after the game. You're going to have bad practices. That's understandable. We had bad practices where sometimes, you're just mentally exhausted, and it's hard to get it going. That's understandable. But showing up on the game day not being ready to go, that's unacceptable, especially for a big time game like Clemson. And that's something that needs to be resolved. Um, I just can't, I can't relate to that because I just don't know how. Just as a basketball player, regardless of it being a big game, man, you got to be ready to show up each and every day, and be ready to go. Like I've heard and seen and been involved in bad shoot arounds, bad practices, but showing up late for getting ready for the game, like right before the game, that's unheard of, and that's just unacceptable, and that needs to be resolved right away because you don't want that to prolong and let that be every single game. Now this, I hope it's an anomaly and doesn't happen again, but that's just unacceptable.
Yeah, I think unacceptable is the best word to describe it, because every team in the country is going to have their shortcomings. Carolina's not alone in having weaknesses, whether it's something
It,
like,
it
Elliot
happens.
Cadeau defensively, Cormac Ryan struggling shooting. But when your struggles are your team is just showing up late, that's
That's just lack
tough
of
to defend.
attention. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's just lack of attention. Like there are some things that you can't control. Like I can't control some days the ball isn't going in the basket. Like we can't control that. But just like defense, there are a lot of things you can control. And the one thing you can control is attention to detail, getting up, being on time, showing up, being ready to go. That doesn't take a genius, and just being ready to go. That doesn't take any type of genius at all. That's just lack of attention and lack of effort and lack of discipline. And again, unacceptable.
My last question from the Clemson game, and then we'll close the book and move on from the Clemson game. If Clemson played Carolina every game, would Ian Shefflin be an All American?
Oh my gosh, man, that dude is a workhorse. And the great thing is it seems like the coaching staff for Clemson does a great job of like getting that dude, like praising him for doing that type of stuff. Because I promise you, he comes out of nowhere. It's like he's invisible, and then he's on the ball, like he got some superpower or something. But yeah, man, that dude, I feel like that dude would be an All-American if he play against Carolina every single game. Because whenever there's big games, he steps up, and that what he did last night with the shoulder,
Yeah.
my dude
No.
was feeling it. But yeah, that dude, man, he's a workhorse.
Yeah, I need somebody to double check this box score because it says he had 3 offensive rebounds. It felt like he
It
had
felt like
every
more.
it it felt like not only did he get every offensive rebound, but every time Clemson needed an offensive rebound,
He was
he
there.
was a big part for why Clemson always felt like they had an answer to every North Carolina run. Him and PJ Hall, that front court duo. Before we wrap up, a big shout out to our friends at Congruity. Congruity is a North Carolina based national coverage, local presence company with personal support straight from the Tar Heel State. Congruity is empowering small and mid sized business owners with HR and payroll outsourcing, enabling you to grow your business while they take care of your greatest assets, your people. And they are doing it with top of the line technology and services for every stage of your business's growth with a state of the art online platform. Congruity, they are obsessed with customer service where they become part of your team. They do the heavy lifting, providing essential admin support with a single point of contact and support available on demand with services that are tailor made for you, transforming your organization. Congruity has helped hundreds of businesses improve and enhance their day to day lives, level up your HR capabilities, save money, unlock game changing growth. Visit congruityhr.com/Tar Heels to learn all about Congruity. Fill out a quick form to be connected to their consultants, and they'll give Inside Carolina listeners or viewers a payroll and HR assessment for free. That's congruityhr.com/Tar Heels, congruityhr.com/Tar Heels. All right, back to the episode. But moving the attention to this Miami team that Carolina will play on Saturday. For the people who haven't watched this Miami team, how would you preview this game? Because they're a team that's struggling, and a lot of people just see them as this team that went to the Final Four, but it's not the same team coming off the Final Four, and it feels like they've really missed Isaiah Wong and Jordan Miller.
Well, if anyone uh hasn't seen the Damon Stoudemire press conference, um go take a look at that, because that is an illustration of what happened to Miami in their last game.
All right, everyone. Coach, if you would, just start us off with a quick statement, and we'll go right to questions.
Shit. Got that ass whooped. Questions. Nothing really to say, man.
And so you got to think that this Miami team is going to come out and they're going to be ready. They're going to I know they've struggled because they've dealt with injuries. Injuries is like a coach's kryptonite during conference play, because once you start having injuries, it really starts throwing things out of whack. And they've had plenty of injuries. Wooga Poplar, Nigel Pack, now Keyshawn George rolled his ankle. And so they're still a good team. All in all, they're still a good team. They can score. They average close to 80 points. And they're coming with they're coming and fighting. I think we are going to see a great matchup between Norchad Omir and Armando, which I am very, very excited about seeing. But it'll be a great matchup on the outside as well. You got Nigel Pack and RJ Davis going against one another. This will be a fast-paced game. This will be up and down. There will be a lot of points scored in the transition, and both teams will have to do a good job of being able to get back and limit each other in the half court. But it'll be a very high scoring game, very electric game. And overall, I just think Carolina has way more pieces than Miami due to the lack of bodies that Miami has because of injuries.
Yeah, it feels like with this Miami team, Cleveland hasn't been as good as they thought he would be, replacing somebody like Jordan Miller. And
Not even
Norchad
close.
Amir is a great big for this Miami team, but they really don't have any depth behind him. So if he gets in foul trouble and he has to go to the bench, and we talk about how this North Carolina team goes through stretches where they struggle to score the ball. When Miami scores 38 points in Charlottesville, you kind of see that their problems are a lot worse on the offensive end, and especially just an inability or an ability to not protect the ball, and they turn the ball over without that true type of point guard out there. But Carolina back in action this Saturday, 4 p.m. tip off in Coral Gables, Miami, right down the road for me. This is best case scenario for me.
Will you
It's
be
like
at the game?
yeah, it's like a 10-minute,
Of course.
15-minute drive. But
Yeah.
then the next week, I hate to say that I'm already looking ahead, but I'm not on the team, so I could kind of look ahead. We've got another Tuesday matchup. I don't know what they're going to do with our podcast next week.
We
We
gotta
have to
keep it. We gotta get it on Monday.
we have to fight for be like, hey, every time there's a Tuesday game and we move our podcast, we lose. So like
We
I,
gotta fight for it.
we got to fight for it. Maybe we record it Monday and release it immediately, but we're gonna get that Tuesday ESPN game with Reese Davis, Jay Williams, and
Oh,
that
not Jay Will again.
I don't want to say it's Jay Will, but it's a Tuesday ESPN game. The main ESPN Tuesday game has been Jay Will and Reese. You have any contacts at ESPN? Where you're like, hey, get Jay Will off these games.
Yeah, I need Jay. I'm gonna text Jay Will. Hey,
He's
man,
great.
just yeah.
I want it on the record. He's great at calling games, but the vibes feel like they're off when he is calling the games.
Yeah, he's awesome calling the games, but I need him to take some of those vacation days he has.
maybe get you in his spot. Ask him if he could trade some studio coverage for
Right.
calling that game.
Yeah.
But Joel, man, appreciate the time as always, and
Always, man.
appreciate everybody watching and listening.